Dangerous levels of lead and cadmium were just detected in some of America's most trusted canned tomato brands. A chemical linked to heart disease is leaching from the lining of cans sitting in your pantry right now. And one iconic brand was caught adding high fructose corn syrup to a product millions believe is nothing but pure tomatoes. But crack open the wrong can, and what you are really eating is hidden sodium, hormone-disrupting chemicals, and heavy metals dissolved into acidic sauce dressed up as wholesome cooking. If this has been your go-to brand for 10, 20, 30 years, everything we found has been in your body that entire time. Today, we are exposing 11 canned tomato brands that failed on safety, honesty, or both, plus the two that tested clean. Number 1 is a name almost every American household trusts, and it is the most dangerous on this list. Coming in at number 11, we have Signature Select. This is Safeway's house brand, the one staring at you from the shelf every time you walk the canned goods aisle. The label says petite diced tomatoes. Simple, affordable, reliable. Then you open the can. What pours out is closer to tomato water than tomato sauce. Thin, pale liquid with soft chunks floating in it like afterthoughts. Consumers on Safeway's own website have called the product overcooked, watery, and mushy. One reviewer wrote that it tasted like the can itself. That metallic bite is not your imagination. When tomatoes sit in acidic juice inside a metal container, the interaction between the acid and the lining intensifies over time. And the ingredient list tells a story the front label does not. Citric acid, calcium chloride, sodium chloride on top of the salt already listed. That is 2 separate sodium sources in one can. For anyone managing blood pressure or families watching sodium intake for a loved one on heart medication, that double dose is a problem no one warned you about. Your cardiologist told you to read labels. The label left out the part that matters. According to the American Heart Association, roughly 48% of American adults have some form of cardiovascular disease. Hidden sodium in products like this makes management harder without the consumer ever knowing why. Safeway charges around $2 for this can. For that price, you can find organic options with cleaner labels and better flavor. $2 for tomato-flavored disappointment. That is Safeway's store brand promise. If a grocery chain cannot get its own store brand right, imagine what the bargain bin brands are hiding. At number 10, we have Happy Harvest. If you shop at Aldi, you have seen this brand. Bright label, low price, the kind of can you toss into the cart without a second thought. Happy Harvest whole peeled tomatoes cost less than $1. That price should make you pause, not celebrate. Open the can and look inside. The tomatoes are pale, closer to salmon pink than the deep red you expect. Some consumers report finding green, unripe tomatoes mixed in with the rest. Bite into one, and the texture is mealy, grainy, like biting into a tomato that gave up halfway through ripening. The juice is thin and tastes faintly metallic, with almost no sweetness and no depth. That is not what a vine-ripened tomato tastes like. That is what industrial processing and bottom-dollar sourcing taste like. Budget canned tomatoes are frequently sourced from regions where pesticide regulations are less stringent than what the USDA enforces domestically. The Environmental Working Group has flagged multiple pesticide residues found on imported canned tomato products, some of which are restricted in the European Union but still permitted in American imports. For people cooking with these daily or families feeding children pasta sauce 3 nights a week, those residues accumulate. Your liver and kidneys process every trace. Over months and years, the burden compounds. A cheap can is not a deal. A cheap can is a question you never thought to ask. Where were these grown? What was sprayed on them? How long did they sit in a warehouse before reaching your shelf? Happy Harvest does not answer any of those questions. The happy label. The unhappy truth. Think the budget brands are the only ones cutting corners? The next entry proves that spending more does not always mean eating safer. Number 9 is Rotel, the famous can of diced tomatoes and green chilies, a staple of queso dip, casseroles, and Tex-Mex night in millions of American kitchens since 1943. Rotel built its reputation on bold flavor and convenience. What they do not build into the marketing is the sodium bomb hiding inside that small can. One 10-ounce can of Rotel Original contains 37% of your entire daily recommended sodium intake. 37% in a single can that most people dump entirely into one recipe. If you add cheese, tortilla chips, and any other seasoned ingredients, that one dish can blow past your full daily sodium limit before dinner is over. Rotel is owned by Conagra Brands, a corporation with annual revenue exceeding $11 billion. They could reformulate, They could reduce the sodium. They could offer a meaningful low-sodium alternative that does not sacrifice the flavor people love. They have not. For anyone on ACE inhibitors or diuretics to manage blood pressure, or families cooking for someone recovering from a cardiac event, that hidden sodium load is not just inconvenient. It actively works against the medication keeping you stable. Your doctor told you to watch your salt. Rotel did not tell you how much salt you were swallowing. 1 can, 37%. That is the recipe they do not print on the label. Drop a comment if Rotel is sitting in your pantry right now. Let's see how many of us have been cooking with this without checking the numbers. If a beloved brand hides that much sodium in a 10-ounce can, surely the specialty Italian brands are more honest. Think again. If this helps you stay safer at the store, hit subscribe. It is free, and it means you will never miss these exposés. Now, at number 8, Contadina. The name sounds authentically Italian. The branding evokes old-world tradition. Contadina has been on American shelves since 1918, more than a century of presence in kitchens across the country. But peel back the heritage and what you find is a product that independent food reviewers consistently rank near the bottom for taste. The primary complaint is an overpowering sweetness that does not belong in a canned tomato. That cloying flavor likely comes from added sugars used to mask the natural bitterness of lower quality fruit. When you open the can, the smell is flat. Not bright, not fresh, just dull and faintly chemical. The tomatoes themselves are soft to the point of disintegration, and the sauce clings to your spoon with a syrupy consistency that no fresh tomato would ever produce. Here is the deeper concern. Contadina sources tomatoes internationally. A 2024 study published in Food Research found that canned tomato products from industrial supply chains showed cadmium concentrations that exceeded World Health Organization and European Commission permissible limits. Cadmium targets the kidneys and the bones. For anyone already managing reduced kidney function, which includes a significant percentage of adults over 60, or families cooking daily with these products, even small amounts accumulate into damage that does not reverse. You will not taste the cadmium. You will not see it floating in the sauce. But your kidneys will process every trace of it. Contadina charges premium prices for a legacy name, a century of branding, a century of trust you never verified. The next brand on this list is one you will find in almost every American household, and what is hiding inside should concern everyone. Before we continue, the number 1 spot goes to a brand that most people consider a kitchen essential. What independent testing revealed about it will change the way you shop for canned tomatoes permanently. This next one might surprise you. Number 7 is Great Value, Walmart's store brand, and one of the most purchased canned tomato products in America. With over 10,000 stores worldwide, Great Value tomatoes end up in more pantries than almost any other brand on this list. Walmart promises that their tomatoes are picked and packaged on the same day. Sounds wholesome. Then you read the consumer reports. Multiple complaints describe finding foreign material inside the cans, dark fragments that do not belong, pieces of stem and skin that should have been removed during processing. One reviewer described pouring the tomatoes into a pot and spotting something hard and dark floating in the sauce that was clearly not food. In 2023, a separate diced tomato product was recalled by the FDA after plastic fragments were found inside cans distributed to multiple states and internationally to Japan. Plastic inside your food. For anyone on blood thinners like warfarin, swallowing even a tiny foreign fragment could cause internal complications that are difficult to detect. For someone with dentures or dental implants, biting down on a hard object can cause real injury. Walmart generated over $600 billion in revenue last year. They could invest in the strictest quality control on earth. Instead, consumers are the quality control. You find the problem after you have already started cooking. Great Value promises everyday low prices. What they deliver is everyday low standards. Your dinner plate is not a suggestion box. If the world's largest retailer cannot keep foreign objects out of your food, at least the premium imported brands are trustworthy, right? Wrong. Here is where it gets personal. Number 6 is Cento, specifically their San Marzano labeled tomatoes, the ones in the tall can with the Italian flag and the word certified printed right on the front. San Marzano tomatoes are legendary, grown in volcanic soil at the base of Mount Vesuvius, prized by chefs worldwide for their sweetness, low acidity, and meaty texture. Consumers pay nearly twice the price of regular canned tomatoes for that name. Then 2 federal lawsuits hit Cento in 2019. Plaintiffs accused the company of false and misleading advertising. DNA testing allegedly showed that samples of Cento tomatoes were only 60 to 85% genetically similar to certified San Marzano seeds. Not identical. Not even close. The Italian consortium that governs San Marzano certification stated that only 5% of tomatoes marketed as San Marzano in the United States are genuine. 5%. That means 95 out of every 100 cans claiming San Marzano on American shelves may be lying to you. Cento's response was to call the lawsuits frivolous. They pointed to a third-party certifier, but the official consortium seals, the ones that verify authenticity, were missing from the cans. You trusted the label. You paid double. The label did not earn that trust. For health-conscious cooks or families who chose San Marzano specifically for the lower acidity and cleaner flavor profile, you may have been eating ordinary industrial tomatoes at luxury prices. Certified by Cento. Questioned by federal courts. $2 extra for a story that did not hold up under oath. A lot of people switched to this next brand thinking they were avoiding everything we just talked about. They were not. Number 5 is one most people trust without question. Kroger, the largest supermarket chain in America. Their store brand diced tomatoes cost about $1 per can. Affordable, familiar, always in stock. Now look at the nutrition label. 250 milligrams of sodium per half cup serving. That is one of the highest sodium counts among any canned tomato product on the market. And the ingredient list does not stop at tomatoes, juice, and salt. Kroger adds calcium chloride, citric acid, dried garlic, unnamed spices, and natural flavors. Natural flavors is an umbrella term that can cover dozens of chemical compounds. The FDA allows it without requiring disclosure of what those compounds actually are. When you see natural flavors on a tomato can, ask yourself why a tomato needs flavoring. The answer is that the tomato inside is not flavorful enough on its own. It needs help. And that help comes from a laboratory, not a farm. Consumers on Reddit have complained that Kroger tomatoes taste bitter, with an unpleasant aftertaste that lingers long after the meal is done. One user described the experience as tasting the can, not the tomato. Pour it into a pot, and the smell confirms it. Sharp, metallic, with none of the sweetness a ripe tomato should carry. For people counting every milligram of sodium because their doctor prescribed a restricted diet, or anyone using canned tomatoes as a daily cooking staple, those hidden additives and that extreme sodium level are sabotaging your efforts without your knowledge. $1 per can, a fortune in hidden sodium. That is the real cost. You just saw what the budget brands are hiding. So surely spending more gets you something better, not even close. At number 4, S&W. A brand that has been around since 1896, more than 120 years of history behind that label. S&W markets itself as a premium product. Quality fruits and vegetables for the American home. The price reflects that positioning. But what the price does not tell you is what added citric acid is doing to your stomach. S&W uses citric acid across its canned tomato line to standardize flavor and extend shelf life. The result is a product with an acidity level that pushes well beyond what a fresh vine-ripened tomato would naturally deliver. Eat the sauce. Within an hour, you feel the burn. Maybe you reach for an antacid. Maybe you take your omeprazole and assume it is just your body acting up. But the added citric acid in that can engineer the acidity for the shelf, not for your stomach. According to the American Gastroenterological Association, approximately 20% of Americans over 50 experience GERD symptoms weekly. High-acid canned products are a documented trigger. Open a can of S&W and the color looks decent. The texture holds together, but taste it straight from the can, and a sharp, almost vinegary bite hits the back of your throat. That is not tomato flavor. That is chemical acidity doing what it was designed to do, preserving the product while punishing your digestive system. For anyone already managing acid reflux, or families cooking for someone with ulcer history, that added citric acid turns dinner into a medical event. The can says, made from vine-ripened tomatoes. It does not say acidified beyond natural levels for a longer shelf life. They chose the shelf over your stomach. See the pattern? Budget brands cut corners. Heritage brands hide behind history. So where does that leave the biggest names in America? Let us find out. We are not done. The last 3 brands on this list are ones almost everyone has bought at some point, and the number 1 spot goes to a name you will recognize immediately. Coming in at number 3, Hunt's. The Red Label. The all-natural claim. The brand that has been a fixture in American kitchens for over 100 years. Hunt's describes its tomatoes as vine-ripened, simmered with salt, spices, and natural flavors. That sounds comforting until you taste it. Independent reviewers and consumers consistently describe Hunt's tomato sauce as aggressively salty, thin, and watery. One Amazon reviewer wrote that they could not justify ever wanting to consume it again. Extremely salty, bland in any recognizable flavor, and very watered down. In a mashed poll, nearly 23% of respondents named Hunt's as the canned tomato brand they are least likely to buy. The top complaint was cans filled with skins, peels, and cores that consumers had to pick out before cooking. Open a can of Hunt's and look carefully. The color is often dull, brownish at the edges. The smell is flat with a faint metallic edge. Pour it into a pot and watch how thin it runs. That is not tomato sauce. That is tomato-flavored water with enough sodium to make your blood pressure spike. Hunt's is owned by Conagra, the same corporation behind Rotel. The pattern is clear. Sodium is cheap. Quality tomatoes are not. They made their choice. Your health paid the price. For people who have trusted this brand for decades, or families who bought it because the all-natural label felt safe, you trusted marketing, not science. The all-natural label. The unnatural sodium levels. The cover story that never changed because no one forced them to change it. Think you have been making the smart choice by paying more? Wait until you see what premium really means. At number 2, Del Monte, a household name for over 130 years. The brand your parents bought. The brand their parents bought. Del Monte sits at eye level in every grocery store in America, and that placement is not an accident. It is paid for. What you are also paying for, without knowing it, is high fructose corn syrup. Del Monte is one of the only major canned tomato brands that includes high fructose corn syrup in some of its products, a sweetener linked to obesity, insulin resistance, and fatty liver disease, hiding inside a can of stewed tomatoes. The sodium levels are equally concerning. Multiple Del Monte products contain sugar and sodium amounts that far exceed competing brands. Then there is the sourcing. Del Monte promotes non-GMO and sustainable practices on the label, but the flavor tells a different story. Reviewers describe the tomatoes as overly sweet, with an artificial quality that does not taste like real fruit. The color inside the can is often pale, with underripe pieces that lack the vibrant red you see in the marketing photography. For anyone managing diabetes or watching blood sugar levels, or families who assumed canned tomatoes were a safe, simple ingredient, high fructose corn syrup in your pasta sauce is a betrayal of basic trust. You did not buy a candy bar. You bought tomatoes. And they added sweetener without putting it anywhere on the front of the can. 130 years of trust. High fructose corn syrup in the fine print. How is it that one of the most profitable food brands in America still cannot sell you tomatoes without hiding sweeteners inside? Is it that they cannot, or that they just do not care enough to try? And now, number 1. I told you at the beginning this one would shock you. I was not exaggerating. Coming in at number 1, and this is the one that made us rethink everything. Whole Foods 365 Everyday Value. The brand built on the promise of clean food. The store where health-conscious shoppers go specifically to avoid the problems we have been talking about for the last 10 minutes. You walk into Whole Foods. You see the organic labels. You see the earth tones and the natural lighting. You feel safe. You trust them. And you pay more because that trust feels worth it. Then the Environmental Working Group released their BPA report. Whole Foods received a D+ rating. A D+. The report stated that the company had not demonstrated it was actively testing BPA-free options for its private label cans, despite a commitment to eliminate the chemical. BPA, bisphenol A, mimics estrogen in your body. It has been linked to blood pressure spikes, heart disease, and hormonal disruption. Tomatoes are one of the most acidic foods you can put in a can. That acid eats into the lining. Whatever chemical is in that lining migrates into your sauce. You cannot see it. You cannot taste it. You cannot smell it, but every time you open that can and pour it into your pot, you are consuming something that never appeared on any ingredient list. Consumer reports confirmed that canned tomatoes consistently test among the highest for BPA content precisely because of their acidity. And Whole Foods, the store that charges you a premium for the promise of purity, scored lower than brands costing half as much. Open a can of 365 diced tomatoes. The tomatoes are fine, ordinary, nothing special for the price. The flavor is average. The texture is acceptable, but you did not pay for acceptable. You paid for safe. You paid for clean. You paid for the Whole Foods name. And what you got was a can with a lining the EWG flagged and a product that tastes no different from the dollar store option. For people who switched to Whole Foods specifically to protect their health, or families who pay extra because they believed organic packaging meant chemical-free packaging, this is the deepest betrayal on this list. The store you trusted most. The D+ they earned. The premium you paid for a promise they did not keep. 11 brands exposed, but do not give up on canned tomatoes entirely. Two brands prove it is still possible to do it right. The first safe pick is Muir Glen. Finally, a canned tomato that does not need tricks. Muir Glen grows all of its tomatoes in Northern California. Certified USDA organic, non-GMO verified. Every tomato is vine-ripened and field-grown in soil. The company monitors itself. And here is the detail that separates them from every brand we just exposed. Muir Glen completed its transition to BPA-free can linings back in 2011. While Whole Foods was earning a D+ from the Environmental Working Group, Muir Glen was already done solving the problem. Their cans use a food-grade vinyl liner that independent testing has confirmed does not leach chemicals into the product. Open a can and the difference is immediate. The color is deep, vibrant red. Not pale, not brownish, not watery. The smell is bright and clean, like tomatoes fresh off the vine. The texture holds. These are whole pieces of fruit in thick, rich juice, not dissolved mush floating in tomato water. The sodium content matches the label exactly. No hidden surprises. No high fructose corn syrup. No unnamed natural flavors. Just tomatoes, tomato juice, and a touch of sea salt. Muir Glen also partnered with the Xerces Society to plant pollinator habitats on their California farms. They are not just growing clean tomatoes, they are investing in the land that produces them. A can cost around $3, a few cents more than Hunt's sodium experiment, a few cents more than Del Monte's hidden sweetener. You are not paying extra for a logo, you are paying for tomatoes that will not betray your trust. The second recommendation is Bio Naturae. This brand goes a step further and eliminates the can entirely. Bio Naturae packages its organic strain tomatoes and tomato paste in glass jars. No metal lining, no BPA, no chemical leaching, no questions about what might be migrating into your food. You can see exactly what you are buying before you open it. The tomatoes are sourced from organic farms in Italy, processed with minimal intervention, and packed without added citric acid, calcium chloride, or any of the preservatives we have been talking about. The ingredient list is short enough to read in 3 seconds. Organic tomatoes. That is it. Open the jar, and the aroma hits you immediately. Fresh, sweet, unmistakably tomato. The color through the glass is a deep, concentrated red that tells you exactly what you are getting before you spend a dime. The texture is thick, rich, and clings to pasta the way a real sauce should. No wateriness, no metallic aftertaste, no chemical sharpness. For anyone managing blood pressure or kidney health, or families who want to remove every risk we discussed today, glass packaging is the simplest answer. Independent labs have tested Bio Naturae products with clean results. No detectable heavy metals above concern. No BPA. No surprises. A jar costs slightly more than a bargain can, but every brand we expose today proved the same thing. The cheapest option is never the safest option. Bio Naturae is proof that honest food and honest packaging still exists. You just have to know where to look, and now you do. What is the worst canned tomato you have ever opened? Drop it below. Let us compare notes. 11 brands, 11 broken promises, one pantry that needs a second look. Subscribe now, and if you are watching on TV, tap your remote so you never get blindsided again.